Home Alone. One of the best things to be when you were a kid is just be home alone. But if you're home alone on Christmas and you have these two burglars, yeah, it's never that good. So, Home Alone, it, you know, it's something I watched. I saw the first two a lot when I was growing up, but never really knew it was like six movies now, something like that. Um, and I saw like a little bit of the sequels after this. I'm just like, yeah, I'm just so glad that I stopped, because I don't care. But I with one and two, I watched them when I was a kid, but I never really kind of grew up watching them. Um, and to be frank, the only parts that I really remember was Kevin McAllister, just absolutely destroying these two. So, oh well. But we had first Home Alone. So the first Home Alone, if you don't know what Home Alone is about, it's about this kid named Kevin McAllister who has a huge family who pretty much all of them kind of hate him for the stupidest of reasons. And on Christmas, they all leave to go on vacation, and they actually accidentally leave him at home, and he's home all alone, and he made his family disappear. But while he's home alone, there are these two burglars played by Joe Pesci and Daniel Stern, known as the Wet Bandits, because every home that they rob, they just flood the place with water, and it's kind of stupid. But oh well, they're kind of stupid. Um, but so Kevin has to defend his home from being burglarized, and how to do that, he sets up all these booby traps that in real life would actually kill them. But it's slapstick. Who cares? It's funny watching someone get third degree burns, or someone stepping on glass ornaments, and it that's funny. I don't know. It was always funny when I was a kid, but then I always realized, like, yeah, that's actually not what would happen. You would actually be bleeding and be so badly burned that you would probably be dead. And especially when you get time to the second movie, yeah. I'm like, yeah, you guys would be dead. The first movie, I understand, I get it. Yeah, like some parts where I'm like, yeah, if you walked away, yeah, you would. That's a miracle. But by the time the second movie rolls around, I'd be like, no, you guys would just be like, wow. If you guys live through that, yeah, you guys are unholy. Like, I don't know what you guys are if you guys lived through all of that. But who cares? It's Home Alone. Who cares? It's supposed to be funny. So, um, yeah, I mean, from John Hughes writing this to Chris Columbus directing it, who, you know, Christopher Columbus to me is kind of like another Robert Zemeckis. I know they kind of all rose to stardom in that era, but like with Robert Zemeckis, I like some of his movies, and I don't like some of his movies. I mean, with Chris Columbus, I like Home Alone 1 and 2. His two Harry Potter movies, which was the first two, I think are kind of the weaker out of the series, or like some of the weaker ones, but they still are the ones that started it. And but he wrote the Goonies, or he did the screenplay to the Goonies. It was Spielberg that wrote it, but it was He wrote the screenplay. Um, but by the time he gets to like Percy Jackson and especially Pixels, oh my god, I can't stand. Well, mainly Pixels, I could not stand. Mainly because of Adam Sandler and Kevin James, just equals just stupidity and just poop. And Percy Jackson, that was a mess. That was all over the place. But besides the point, um, I think Chris Columbus did a good job at directing this movie. This is also a movie that made Macaulay Culkin like a superstar. He did this. He did Home Alone 2. He did was it the good? It was the Good Son. He did. Oh shoot! Forget that other movie. The movie he died in. I forget what movie it is. But yeah, he became a superstar, and Uncle Buck, and then yeah, it was just he rose to fame, and in fact, it was Uncle Buck that because John Hughes helped do that one. It was like, yeah, that kid, he's Kevin McAllister. So, yay. So if he wasn't in Uncle Buck and hadn't worked with John Hughes, he more than likely wouldn't have gotten Home Alone, which is crazy. So Home Alone, it's what I mean. What can I say? It's it has all those moments like when you're a kid, you were always afraid of the basement, but you realize that it's not scary down there. But also when you're a kid, you also had the feeling that someone in your neighborhood was a killer or like a house was haunted, and they play that super well in this movie. I've always liked that kind of feeling because then towards the end, Kevin realizes like, oh, there's nothing wrong with the basement. Oh, there's nothing wrong with this guy. There's nothing wrong. Um, so and then finally when we get to the booby trap scene, it's just it's funny. To me, there's some moments where I go, ow, 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 that would hurt. And then if you watch, a ton of movies now, like definitely go watch the new movie Violent Night because they directly like do stuff from Home Alone, and it's like, see, that's exactly what would happen. Like all that stuff, like all the like blood and just like all of that would be realistic. So, so yeah, I've always liked the first Home Alone. Um, to me, it gets great. You know, I I know a lot of people are gonna say it's actually amazing, but to me, it's great. You know, I like the acting. The direction's really good. John Williams' score I think is great. Um, so yeah, I really enjoy this movie. Then we get Home Alone 2. Home Alone 2 I think gets a bad rap because I don't think it's as bad as everyone says it is. Like, it's this, like it's all like this, and it's like, well, yes, but it does some things differently. So and also, one thing about Home Alone that about 1 and 2 especially is that it's supposed to show that yes, Kevin McAllister, yes, he's a kid, he's a little kid, but he's smart and he uses his brains. And the way he's able to fool all these adults, he makes all these adults look like idiots. And it's funny. So yeah, that's always what I liked about Kevin is that he's a kid, but yet he uses his mind. He uses his brain to then fool people and making them look more like idiots than they are. So, I mean, the fact that he's able to use a movie to fool people is just funny to me. It's always a joy. So, Home Alone 2, it's basically the first movie they go off instead of Um, they they go to Florida, but there's a mix up at the airport, and Kevin ends up going on a plane to New York City. So he's lost in New York City, and the wet bandits are there. They escaped, and they're there, and yeah. I mean, you could say that this is pretty much an exact replica of the first movie. Yes, and it's like Ghostbusters. You know, two was pretty much a hardened copy of the first movie, but yet it did some things differently. This is on that same level, and you know, again, I think two gets a bad rap. I personally I like two. You know, I like two. Um, yes, there's some parts where I'm like, okay, this kind of, you know, if it was just this little kid, you know, walking around, I'd be like, that's no. Like, okay, that's yeah, I would. Do, my first thought would be like, yeah, this kid needs help. Um, so, but it's a movie. You're not always gonna get realistic. So, yeah, but yeah, I think Home Alone 2. I think it gets a bad rap. It's not as good as the first movie, but it's not as bad as everyone says it is. You know, to me, I think it gets an average. You know, especially what I like doing is watching Home Alone 1 and Two's the booby trap scenes. You know, back to back, because you know with 2 it's yes it's more over the top, and it's been like yeah you guys would absolutely be like burst into flames. You guys would absolutely be like red paste on the floor. But yeah, it's funny, you know. So it's always a joy, and especially the just chemistry between Joe Pesci and Daniel Stern is just it just works so well, you know. But I mean, before when it was announced that yeah it was going to be these two guys, you'd be like, I'm not too sure about that. But then once you see, you know, because the dialogue is done better, the characters are written better, and the way they perform it together just really adds something special to the movie they already did. So yeah, I've always liked 1 and 2. Yeah, 1 gets a great, 2 gets an average. You know, it's not as good. It's not as good as the first movie. Plus, also seeing Tim Curry in it, I always love Tim Curry. I always love him. Um, you know, and in a special and a cameo by a presidential from a president. So, which you know, whatever. I'm just gonna scoop by. Um, but you know, Home Alone 1 and 2. They're always a blast to watch during the Christmas season. Um, you know, I know a lot of people adore these movies, and probably a lot of their parents have like scars on their feet because they stepped on little micro machines and not realizing that that actually hurts and can actually kill somebody. So it's like the modern day Legos. You know, you step on a Lego and you die. So oh well.